Since the dawn of the 21st century, scientific discovery has rushed forward at lightning speed. Genetics, physics, computerized technology, robotics, virtual reality. Join Derek and Sharon Gilbert as they uncover the truths behind this ultimate scientific deception. Welcome to Sci Friday.
We're between Thursday and Saturday, and that means it's time for... Welcome to Sci Friday. I'm Derek Gilbert.
I'm Sharon Gilbert. Welcome to our family room. Don't confuse me like that. That's a long word for Friday.
Well, you know, we're at over 250 episodes in, trying to come up with new ways to introduce the show.
It's really difficult. We may have to go back to asking people to do videos of science. We have been covering our tour of Israel in 2019, and some of the places we visited were just incredible. El Awat, one of them, which is the site, probably the site of Sisera, going to Gilgal Rephaim, but also to Yardenit, which is a favorite of everybody.
Sure. It's a place where you can go into the Jordan River. If you've not been baptized, what better place than in the Jordan? In fact, we've stayed in touch with some of the people that we met in our tours in 2018 and 2019, and some of them had never been baptized before joining us on tour. And in fact, just exchanged a few emails with Val. Hi, Val.
Hi, Val. Love you.
In the UK. And she was baptized there. And to me, it was really humbling that there are people who wanted us, me, or Rabbi Zev Porat, who joined us on the tour, to baptize. I don't feel qualified, to be quite honest, and to be doing it in that river, that body of water that historically has marked the boundary between God's land and the land of the pagans. Boy, that is really a humbling experience, especially because in 2018, Dr. Michael Heiser joined us, and he explained, based on his teaching of 1 Peter 3, verses 19 and 20, what baptism is all about and why Peter connects the practice of baptism to the flood of Noah.
Yes, exactly. And I think it's really important as well to understand that across the Jordan, we have this concept of when you pass over into eternity, you go over a river. Many, many civilizations believe that. And, excuse me, I'm going to cough. And beyond the Jordan to the east is the land of the dead, the land of the Rephaim.
Right.
And north of the Sea of Galilee, it wasn't chosen randomly.
No. Everything Jesus did was deliberate and had a purpose. And this location, Galilee of the Gentiles, as it's called by the prophet Isaiah, is very significant. And we'll talk about this and teach on this as we get into the Holy Land. We'll also do some future programs on this because we want to share the information. And that's why we're doing this 6-week series based on our tour. If you can go with us, great. This is a preview of what you'll see. If you can't, we want to share this with you. And of course, if you want to see the whole DVD, that's available at our store. You can also get it in streaming video. We've got a streaming video site set up now where you can get this.
And that DVD has extras.
Yes, the DVD extras are well worth it. Teachings, full-length teachings from Pastor Carl Gallup's Messianic Rabbi Zev Porat. I throw in a few things as well. You can find that, again, at our online store. But without further ado, why is Yardenit, why is baptism, the practice of baptism, so important?
1 Peter 3, beginning at verse 18, is a very interesting section of Scripture that many pastors won't touch because it's weird. But if it's weird, it's important, right? For Christ also suffered once, as Rabbi Zev said, suffered once for sins, the righteous for the unrighteous, that he might bring us to God, being put to death in the flesh, but being made alive in the Spirit, in which he went and proclaimed to the spirits in prison. Now, who's he talking about there? 200 watchers. He's talking about the 200 watchers that are in the abyss. He's not talking about the rank and file dead in Sheol, not the human dead. We're talking about the spirits who, verse 20, because they formerly did not obey when God's patience waited in the days of Noah. He's talking about the angels who kept not their first estate. This is Genesis 6 in the New Testament. 1 Peter 3, beginning at verse 18. While the ark was being prepared, in which a few, that is 8 persons, were brought safely through water, baptism, which corresponds to this, now saves you, not as a removal of dirt from the body, but as an appeal to God for a good conscience through the resurrection of Jesus Christ. Once. Who has gone into heaven and is at the right hand of God with angels, authorities, and powers having been subjected to him. What Peter did right here is link baptism to Jesus proclaiming to the spirits in prison who are now subject to him. Every time a new believer comes to the faith and makes that decision to be baptized, it's like Jesus going down there once again and saying, we got another one. And you're still dead.
This year, we were blessed to have the messianic perspective, the Hebrew perspective of Zev Porat. And he, I think, really brought something special to this. He said, look, we don't do baptism to just for the sake of being baptized in the Jordan River. If you've already been baptized, let's not do this again. It's not something you have to do repeatedly to continue washing off your sins. If you've not been baptized before, or if you were baptized as an infant and didn't have then we're more than happy to baptize you. And there were plenty of people who got baptized for the first time in the Jordan River.
I know, that's so exciting. Now, I had been baptized previously, but I got into the water.
Yes, we did worship out there. He said, now here, if you want to get in the water with us and worship, and we will sing praises to Yeshua, then let's do that.
And we did.
And there was some amazing worship. The experience for those who had made the decision to be baptized for the first time was very powerful. You could see the emotion on people who were doing this as adults, fully cognizant of what it represented. It's incomparable.
Amen to that. We left Yardenit, left those amazing memories behind, and also you can buy a DVD of your baptism before you leave, and they provide all the towels and everything. So you know it's really sort of self-contained. It's amazing. But on the way home, we had to stop for gas. That happens. Need a little petrol so you can make it to the next location. The bus stopped at a petrol station, and the following happened. This happened.
Yeah, this is where you've seen the picture earlier on of Hannah Gallops, Carl's daughter-in-law, deciding she was going to ride the camel. Yeah,
and we were in a hurry.
We had to hurry because we were on our way down to the Dead Sea Resort, and they have dinner at a specified time for large groups.
Exactly. So everybody has their slotted time.
So Carl threatened to sell her off to Bedouins, but thankfully we managed to talk.
They were just going to meet his price.
Yeah. So we talked him out of that, and so she made it home safely, thankfully. But she enjoyed the camel ride, and later we all got to do that. We'll show you those images later when we get to the Genesis land.
Well, after we left the petrol station and we had Hannah on board the bus safely, we all made the rest of the journey to our next hotel, the second hotel of our stay over there in Israel, and the Dead Sea David, or the David Dead Sea Resort, I should say. Oh, my goodness.
It is an amazing hotel. They've got a cluster of hotels for tourists and for people who are just looking for a weekend getaway on the west side of the Dead Sea. And it's amazing. The David Resort.
It's 5-star.
Yeah, it really is an incredible, incredible hotel. The desserts.
Oh, goodness. Just the display of the desserts. They look so gorgeous, you hate taking anything down.
Right. We'll ruin the presentation.
Oh, yeah. But no, it was really amazing. And while we were there, we'll later on in the DVD, you will learn that we all got to spend a little time in the Dead Sea. So take your swimsuit.
Yeah. The next day, we headed out from the Dead Sea Resort, which is a great spot, perfectly located to see Masada. If there's a place in Israel that's like the Alamo to Texans here in the United States, it would have to be Masada.
That's a really good way to explain it, because I would venture to say that there are many Christians who know their Bible that still don't really understand what Masada was all about, because in many ways our Bible ends at AD 90 or so. Yes, we get a peek into the very end of days, but the history itself, it ends before Masada happened.
Well, yeah, it ends with the letters of Paul, so the book of Acts and then the epistles really conclude before AD 70 with the fall of Jerusalem.
Exactly.
And then Masada fell 3 years later.
And then John was writing in about AD 90, so that's about the last historical point that we get.
Right. And
Eschatologically, it's different, but yeah, Masada it's this incredible place that King Herod had built as his last redoubt.
he didn't have the most secure position, and he wasn't the most trusting individual. Murdered a number of his own family members because they were conspiring against him. They're all against me.
It's like a Shakespearean play.
It kind of is. But he was Idumean, an Edomite,
yes,
who had accepted, at least nominally, the Jewish faith in order to rule over Judea with the blessing of Caesar Augustus. He was really Octavian's man in the Middle East.
That is absolutely the truth. And interestingly enough, being an Edomite and coming from that idea of living within this desert area and making use of what's there in the landscape, hence later on, you'll see when we go to Petra, that's an Edomite area. Mm-hmm. The Nabateans weren't Edomite necessarily, but the Herod knew the Nabateans. He grew up knowing their capabilities,
yes,
and he made use of that.
Politically speaking, the relationship between Herod and his father Antipater and the Nabatean Arabs was complex. Sometimes they were allied, sometimes they were not. There was some intermarriage between the families. Anyway.
That is so true, but we get this location, which it's very, very isolated. You could see why it would be very difficult to assault and siege that area.
It took the Romans months to build a siege ramp, and the remnant of the siege ramp is still up against the side of Masada. The fall of Masada is epic. There's a feature film that's been made of this, which it's based on the story told by Josephus, the Jewish historian, who had taken part in the rebellion. All of his men surrendered except for him. Well, all of his men killed themselves except for him. He surrendered, but he ingratiated himself to the emperor, the future emperor Vespasian, and he wrote a history of the Jewish people, which tells us a lot of what we know about the first century. But bear in mind, Josephus wasn't at Masada, so when he puts words in the mouths of the commanders at Masada, their final speech as they exhort his fellow men to kill their wives and children so they wouldn't become Roman slaves, he was using a bit of artistic license.
He was, but I think he was also using some of the legends. Legends grew up around Masada very quickly because this was a big deal.
Yeah.
Rome finally did overrun the palace. This palace sits way up on the top of a bluff, and you can get up there by two ways today. You don't have to use a siege ramp. You don't have to build anything. And mind you, building a siege ramp, building anything out there meant you had to import your raw materials.
Right.
Try to find a tree out there.
Bigger than an acacia. Yeah, not too many.
But yes, it's you can get up there by going up what they call the snake path.
The snake path.
Or you can go up in a gondola, and that's what we did.
Yeah, we'll take the tram, thank you.
Yeah.
So we toured Masada. This was another day when it was really hot, well over 100 degrees Fahrenheit, and I faded before the end. So I'm glad that you and Taylor were there with the video cameras to catch the echo.
We'll scream one word at a time in Hebrew, okay? Of those words, Shenit Metzada Lo Tipol, 4 words, one word at a time upon my signal. After you scream to the top of your lungs, be totally quiet and listen how this mountain answers, okay? Are you ready? So the first word is Shenit, okay? 1, 2, 3. Shenit! Metzada. 1, 2, 3. Metzada! Whoa. Third, Lo. 1, 2, 3. Lo! Wow. Fourth, Tipol. Tipol. 1, 2, 3. Tipol! Whoa.
Oh.
Yeshua! Mashiach!
That was incredible. I'm so glad I was able to go on that final leg of the journey. You wander around Masada, you see he had 3 palaces up there?
Right, because when you're Herod the Great, if you're Herod the average, then you could make
Just
do with one.
one.
But Herod the Great, now he needs 3.
But he also had to bring up all the supplies that he kept up
Right,
there. There
right.
were water cisterns and places to store all sorts of olive oil and various things you would need to live
Right.
for months and months.
During a siege.
Exactly, which is what happened.
Which again, given the political situation in the 1st century BC, give or take 50 years with the Parthians and the Romans and even the Armenians at one point fighting for control over the Holy Land, you never knew when you were going to need your last redoubt.
Now, it was not King Herod who was besieged by the Romans.
No.
It was a group of individuals who fled Jerusalem when it was invaded by the Romans.
Right. And they held out for 3 years, which drove the Romans nuts. The fall of Masada was epic in the national history of Israel, just like in the national history of the United States. Things like the Alamo or the flyers at
Gallipoli
Midway.
for Australia.
Gallipoli for Australians. Yes, that's an excellent point. the song Men of Harlech for my Welsh ancestors.
Yes, yes.
Those things are important. And to this day, trainees in the IDF will still make that kind of a pilgrimage, as I understand it. Well, from Yardenit to Masada, such a historic site in Israel's history.
I know. You're up there and you're looking at the Roman encampments, and it's just a sobering thought to think they couldn't get down. They were surrounded. There was no way down, and eventually the Romans were going to get up there.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful sight. Pretty birds up there.
Yes, absolutely.
I love those birds.
But it was also in that area, and it was possible, by the way, that some historians think that that's where David, the stronghold, where David hid from King Saul.
Oh, that's really amazing.
And of course, the next site that we visited on the tour was a place where David resisted the temptation to take the kingdom from Saul by force. That's next on Sci Friday. Israel is ground zero in the long supernatural war in which we all play a part. And during the month of October, our special offer helps you to better understand that war and the land of Israel. Our 2 nonfiction books, Veneration, about the ancient cult of the dead and the way it drew Israel in, and Giants, Gods, and Dragons, about the strange and mysterious creatures that God declares are real. Plus the DVD of our tour of Israel from 2018 that takes you to these key battleground sites from Mount Hermon to the Mount of Olives, Mount Nebo to the Temple Mount, and then on to the mysterious island of Sardinia, where we explored the tombs of the giants, a 6,000-year-old stone ziggurat, and the Tophet, used by the ancient Phoenicians to sacrifice children to the dark god Molech. Bought separately, this package is worth $60, but during the month of October, we're making it available to you for just $35 plus shipping and handling. Our October special, available only at our online store. You'll find it at gilberthouse.org/store. And again, thank you for your prayers and your support. Welcome back to Sci Friday. I'm Derek Gilbert.
I am Sharon Gilbert and Ein Gedi.
Yes.
Woo.
That was a perfect spot in the tour for that because it was really, really hot when we were there. We were there in May previously, and they were in the middle of a heat wave. It was over 100 degrees Fahrenheit most every day. So Ein Gedi, where they've got that waterfall, that was wonderful. But it's also the site of where David cut off the hem of Saul's robe while Saul was relieving himself in one of the caves. Well, from Masada, the group traveled to En Gedi, which was the place where David cut off the hem of Saul's robe.
Can you imagine that?
Yeah.
What that must have been like. And as you go in there, first of all, it's a beautiful park, and it is so peaceful to go in there. You get to be around these goats that whenever you read the shepherd David writing about goats and sheep, you see these special goats in there. And forgive me, I can't remember the name.
Ibex?
Ibex, yes. They're ibex. And boy, they have big horns.
They do, and they're not afraid of humans, but they're protected. So you are able to get very close to them, which is really neat.
It really is cool.
The other striking thing about En Gedi is the amount of water that's there, because this is south of Jerusalem, and when you get south in Israel, it's usually very, very dry, especially around the Dead Sea. En Gedi is on the west side of the Dead Sea, and yet you've got this spring, and it manifests in a waterfall.
Oh, and it was very hot there that day,
yes.
And that waterfall was so much appreciated.
Felt really, really good. So this was a really fascinating place to visit. We enjoyed dipping in the water. We enjoyed seeing the goats.
And one last thing before we leave En Gedi, I want to mention this because I'm looking at my live photos of one of the ibex, and you can see where they go up into these trees and they get the leaves off of them, and it just, because its horns almost get caught. And it reminded me of when Abraham is told to sacrifice his son, and then he sees a ram caught in a thicket.
Right.
And of course, this is fulfilled. It was prophetic, because later on we see the crown of thorns put upon Christ's head. That's the representative of that ram being caught in the thicket.
Yes.
So a lot of things that you can learn. So you know what? If you ever get an opportunity to come with us, I think you will learn a great deal, even from places like this.
So the following day, we had a real treat. We happened to be in Israel the same time that the director of the Copper Scroll Project was in the country, Jim Barfield, and he agreed to meet us at Qumran.
And we almost didn't make it.
Yeah, one of the things we're learning about the Dead Sea area is that it is plagued by sinkholes. The Dead Sea is losing water, and as the salt water recedes and the water table lowers, the water is replaced by fresh water coming from places like Ein Gedi, which is dissolving.
Fresh water and salt don't get along.
Well, yeah, what it does is it dissolves the salt in the soil underneath the west shore of the Dead Sea, and unfortunately, Highway 90 runs right across a lot of that territory. And that Saturday that we were there, we were informed that a sinkhole had opened in Highway 90 between us and Qumran.
So we didn't think we were going to get to make it to Qumran, but we did get there. The highway department repaired that sinkhole very, very quickly. So we were limited on time. We had hoped to spend a couple of hours there walking around and actually seeing the cave that Jim Barfield, where he found some incredible things. We've signed an agreement that we say we cannot reveal what's in there, but trust me, what's in there, it will shake the world.
It will indeed. So what little he was able to share with us, and he did come to our hotel the following night at the was able to give us a presentation, a longer presentation, and take some questions and answers. So that was really amazing. If he is right, it could be a geopolitical and theological earthquake. So from Qumran, we went to lunch, and this just wasn't any old lunch.
Oh boy, was it lunch.
This was a lunch like Abraham would have enjoyed back in the day. We partied like it was 1699 BC. In fact, it's almost like going to one of those, medieval recreation things.
It was like a Renaissance feast, except it was Abrahamic. It was this wonderful Old Testament version of what life would have been like. We were hosted. You got to put on clothing of the period if you wanted to.
Right.
You got to ride on camels if you chose to. And Derek and I did, and so did Taylor.
You guys want to put outfit like our Superman over here, please. Good job, Taylor. Hold on.
It's okay, baby girl.
Okay.
I'm fine. Should we take that as a sign, or do you think she's gonna settle down? See? You put me to the test.
Texas.
I did that with one hand, by the way. I'm still filming, I think.
Thankfully, Taylor hung onto the camera there because that camera was my iPad, and that would have been a great loss.
We're so glad he hung on. He's a brave guy, and he really, that was an incredible shot, actually.
It was.
That will go down in history. After that, we went to a place that, boy, the experience there, taking Zev Porat and Carl Gallups along to Shiloh. Whoa.
Yes. This is where Zev's training to be a rabbi offers him a unique perspective that we English speakers don't have.
The word Yeshua. I rejoice in Yeshua. Look at the end of the Bible verse where it says, to his king and exalt the name of his anointed one. That's in Hebrew, Meshichol, Kevin Meshichol, Messiah. So it shows you the name of Yeshua right here. Yeshua, and then it shows you right over here.
Anointed one. Rejoice in your Jesus. Yeah. And he will give strength, and he will exalt the name of his Messiah.
So Yeshua is right here. Now the amazing thing about it, you ask, okay, why is it the Jewish people don't see this? Well, two reasons. Number one, the Holy Spirit has to open their eyes. Amen.
Right.
And number two, if you've been told your whole life that the name of Yeshua is Yeshu, when you finally come to this Bible verse, you're not going to do the connection. because you don't know his name.
Which is why the rabbis changed it.
We did not know that before Zev pointed this out to us as he was teaching on the prayer of Hannah there at Shiloh. So an amazing place. It was a fanboy moment for me. I took this selfie standing in front of the Fines tent for the Associates for Biblical Research. Archaeologist Dr. Scott Stripling leading the dig there. I sent him that picture. He thought it was pretty funny that actually fans are taking selfies in front of the archaeology tent.
We also, once again, got photographs of the bull image that's inside some of the stones.
Right.
You also see in one of my photographs the horn that's on, and Yishai had pointed it out, our guide. The stones were reused. And they were part of an old church and part of, I don't know, probably Muslims used them again for various things. So this, you can see it's horned on one side. So it may have been part of the altar at one time.
That's very true. And as we were preparing to leave Shiloh, as we were heading back towards our buses, we looked up in the sky and noticed an odd cloud formation in the sky to the south.
I was walking with Zev Porat at the time, and I nudged him, and I pointed upward, and he said, "Oh, you see it too?" And I said, "Yeah, tell me what you think it is." And he said, "Well, it's the wings of the cherubim over the altar." And I said, "That's exactly what I thought it was." And there was nothing else in the sky.
We can't figure out. Now, I suppose somebody looking for a naturalistic explanation would say, well, an Israeli F-15 pilot performed some maneuver in the sky.
You hear those planes go overhead.
Yes,
They're very loud.
Yeah.
And that would have been a very strange formation to do and leave nothing else in the sky.
The other thing to remember is that unlike here in the United States, where we see contrails and chemtrails all over the place, you don't have commercial air traffic for the most part over Israel, except for the occasional flight from Eilat to Tel Aviv, because all commercial jets coming into Israel are not allowed to overfly their neighbors.
Which is why when one does go overhead, you definitely notice, and it's probably scrambling towards some kind of a target.
And a fighter jet sounds a lot different than a commercial jet anyway, so you can tell the difference.
They really do. It was almost like the Lord was saying, I just want you to know that I'm blessing this visit and everything that Rabbi Zev has said.
Well,
what a story.
Yes, that and then Shiloh and the significance of that location for more than 3 centuries, the location of the Tabernacle, but the miracle. That I don't hesitate.
To me, it was a miracle to look up and see that formation in the sky. I'm not one of those people who looks at clouds and says, hey, there's this image or that, because a lot of that is pareidolia. You just think you see it. But there was nothing else in the sky. There were no planes. You always hear the planes go overhead, and only a military jet could have done that turn. But no, it was just right there.
And we would have heard it because we show in the tour video what it sounded like when we were at Masada and the F-15s were training exercise over Masada. Yeah. So, no, it wasn't that. Something else was going on there. But Shiloh, one of the most significant locations in Israel's history, and it's why we're so excited and why we've been talking about the discoveries there with the lead archaeologist, Dr. Scott Stripling, who's become a friend of ours there. And his discoveries, his ongoing digs there, they may have found the location where the tabernacle stood.
I know. Is that not exciting? So go with us in March of 2023 if there's any way you can swing it, because you will never be the same.
Absolutely. Find the information at our website, gilberthouse.org/travel. And next week, we continue at Joshua's altar. Don't miss the next Sci Friday. Sci Friday is a viewer-supported outreach of Gilbert House Ministries. We'd love to hear from you. Contact us through our websites or drop us a line at P.O. Box 78, Crane, Missouri 65633.